All right. So beginning seated here on our mats and seated comfortably, whatever that means for you. If you want to sit up on a bolster or a folded up blanket, that's perfect. You can do most of these practices even seated in a chair. You can modify them a little bit. Our practice today is going to be focused on opening up our protective posture reflexes. We've talked before about how we have kind of a closed in protective posture that is an involuntary nervous system response, whether we realize it or not. We also might have a more hypervigilant on guard kind of posture where we're really open through the front, but tight through the back of the body. We also can have these side to side reflexive postures, almost like we're flinching from somebody trying to tickle us, or like a boxer would flinch against that punch to the side. So either direction, we may have them. We may have some combination of all of them. They may lead to postural imbalances that make it really hard for us to just muscle our way out of, because it's not just a habit. There's actually some tightness and tension in the muscles, and even awareness between what the brain and the body, how the brain and the body are communicating with each other through the nervous system. And so these practices are to just kind of wake up those areas a little bit. We call that body mapping. So it's basically the brain getting in communication with those different areas of the body that maybe it hasn't had to, because we haven't asked it maybe to sit upright. Instead, we're kind of always in this posture. So there's lengthening here, those contracting muscles aren't really aware. And then this contraction on this side, maybe those lengthening muscles are, they're just out of practice. So we're going to use these to reawaken these places so their brain and our body can communicate better with each other, so that we can kind of find just a more neutral posture without trying as hard, maybe without even trying at all. Another thing to think about as we go into these postures is that if we get stuck in a postural pattern, I'm going to use this one because this is one of my natural ones. Forward posture is pretty common as well. And so if we're kind of stuck in this posture, we may not even realize, realize that we're in it. And to just stretch ourselves out of it, the body's going to kind of reflexively go back to what it's used to, right? We know that the brain patterning through the brain, patterning through movement patterns, all of these things are almost kind of hardwired into our brain. And so we can try and we can force it for a while, but when the body gets tired, when it's under stress, it's going to revert back to what's familiar. And so instead of trying to muscle our way out of it and then have that reflexive response, we're going to actually go really deep into it. So it's almost like when your seatbelt gets stuck in that like halfway locked out position. You can't just keep pulling it and make it come out, right? You have to ratchet it all the way back in, and then you can pull it all the way out. Same thing here with our body. Not exactly the same mechanics, but that's the image in my head that works for me. So we're going to go deep into that contraction even more, all the way deep into it, and then the body will sort of bounce back to neutral instead of bouncing back to where it was before. That's the theory. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to move through different movement patterns, forward, back, and side to side. We'll also add in a rotation just for good measure. Those are all the different directions that our spine is designed to move. So let's go ahead and get started. So we're going to go ahead and start, obviously, yoga practice with just some breath work. So we'll take some deep breaths in through the nose and out through the nose, just settling in without making a lot of other changes to the breath. So at this point, we're just going to kind of notice where it is today. Sitting comfortably, an upright posture, but a comfortable one. Breathing in through the nose and out. And then as we're just observing the breath, notice when the body kind of decides to switch between the inhale and the exhale, letting the body make that decision and not the mind. When we're patient and kind of let the body make that decision for us, we may notice we actually have a lot more time to breathe in than we usually give ourselves. And we probably have a lot more time to breathe out. Interesting to notice that our breath gets impatient even with our own. Let me say that again. Our brain gets impatient even with our own breath. Our brain gets in such a hurry to move on to whatever's next. It doesn't even take time to breathe fully. But we can change that. We can shift that. We can build new patterns. And so as we start to notice each of our breaths getting just a little bit longer, we may notice that when we do that, we start to breathe a little bit deeper into the belly. So just feeling the breath in the body. As we're noticing the breath here, we can start to add in just a slight constriction in the back of the throat, moving into Ujjayi breath, hero's breath. It's that slightly audible breath, that slight constriction in the back of the throat, creating just a little bit of vibration. That vibration toning the vagus nerve, and that nerve being the main communicator between our nervous system and all of the organ systems in our body, telling him everything's okay. And we can just continue these deep and full breaths, letting our focus just sort of drift away from the intentionality of the breath, but still keeping those breaths deep and long. And we're just going to start to rotate a little bit through the torso. Just a way to gently invite in some movement. And as we do, moving really slowly and noticing what we feel in our body, every different place we're in. Maybe noticing if there's any tightness anywhere, any tension. Maybe there's some areas where we have a little bit of discomfort or maybe even signals of pain sensation. We don't have to go into any pain sensation, but just kind of noticing, oh yeah, that's a place I usually avoid. And maybe in this practice, we can find ease in the body to maybe explore those spaces just a little bit, knowing we can change our mind anytime. Just gently start to change our direction. And again, as if it's the first time we've ever moved in this way, noticing every single thing that we feel, everything we notice. We don't have to assign judgments, but we can notice the things that feel nice and not just the things that are uncomfortable. And as we just kind of ease into a neutral posture, taking a moment here just to check in. And we can do a bit of a body scan while we're here. And just by that, we just let our attention or focus maybe drift from the crown of the head down to the base of the spine. And on its way down, we can notice if there's any tension anywhere, any sensation, just anything that calls our attention. Doesn't have to be tension. But maybe there's a furrow in the brow. Maybe the eyes aren't quite as relaxed as they could be. Maybe there's some tension in the jaw. As we just start to notice our posture, do our ears feel even? Do our shoulders feel even? That space between the ears and the shoulders, is that the same on both sides? Or is our sort of internal perception of that they're maybe not even? You can notice if our arms feel like they're kind of hanging the same way, maybe noticing any tightness or tension through the sides of the body, noticing if there is any of that gentle side bending reflexive posture. We may not feel that in the spine, but we may notice maybe the shoulders and hips feel a little closer on one side than the other. That's how I first noticed that that's my tendency, that one shoulder in pictures was always higher than the other. I didn't understand why until I learned all this stuff. And so just kind of getting an idea of what our body feels like in space right now, what it feels like on the inside, what is our perception of where it is outside in space. And then we can open our eyes if they're closed. And we're going to go ahead and go right into some of our side opening practices. So we're going to do this 3 times on each side. We change it just a little bit each time. And the idea is that we're creating a slightly different sensation every time. So the brain doesn't try to predict what it's going to feel. And we have the opportunity to really notice what's there. So sitting up nice and tall first, we're going to start just with bringing our ear to the shoulder. So some lateral flexion through the cervical spine. And then we're going to let the body come all the way into a side bend, staying rooted and grounded down through our sitting bones. So we're not tipping out of our seat. We're thinking about that, maybe initiating that bend from the belly button up towards the crown of the head. So the spine gently moving to the side, this bottom hand just here for support. We can take our top arm up and over, keeping that elbow pretty straight and just reaching up and over. We're going to just lengthen through the side body and the movement coming through the shoulder and lengthening through the side. So noticing what we feel here. Whenever we get to the point where the arm just kind of maybe doesn't go anymore, that's perfect. We'll just stay there. So it's as if we're aiming to go straight over our ear, but the goal is not to have that arm over the ear. It's just to lengthen sort of in that neutral center line of the body. All the way down through the side, we may notice this all the way down through our hip, up through the side of the body, maybe under the arm, maybe into the shoulder and even into the back of the shoulder blades a little bit, keeping the neck really relaxed, the ear towards the shoulder. And then we'll just gently bring that arm back down, easing back to neutral. We'll pause briefly between each, just giving our brain a chance to reset and to sort of log away that new information, sensory information that it just experienced. Now we're going to add something different here. So same thing, we'll start the same way, ear to the shoulder, coming into that side bend, this bottom hand just for support. And if we find ourselves going deeper into that side bend, just allowing that to happen, more space might be available now than it was. So if it is, we can go a little bit more into that side bend, but we don't have to. And we'll bring that arm up and over, keeping again the elbow pretty straight, that movement from the shoulder. And this time as if we're trying to reach the arm in front of the face. So just slightly changing that angle and letting the mind go to those places that maybe we didn't feel just a moment ago. Maybe we feel something different now, maybe a little bit more through the back body. And just noticing if we can define it, if we can describe it, great. But even if we can't, just noticing something's different, aware of what's there. Bring that arm all the way back. We'll come to neutral, pausing here to rest. And once again, to this side, same thing. We'll set it the same way again. We may have more space available through the spine, so feel free to let the body find that C curve wherever that ends up being for you. Head and neck stays nice and relaxed. We'll take that arm up and over, this time as if we're trying to go behind the head. Again, stopping though whenever we would have to bend the elbow or the shoulder to get there. So the angle is behind the head, but we may not be anywhere near it. But again, as we just shift this trajectory a little bit, the direction that we're reaching the side body, we can notice different places we feel sensation than we did before. Breathing, feeling, and gently easing back to neutral, pausing here. And before we move on to the other side, just taking a second here to do another little body scan. Arms can either be by our side or they can be in our lap. And just like we did before, kind of scanning head to toe. And what do we notice? We may start to notice some asymmetries now since we've done one side and not the other. So again, that space between the ears and the shoulders is something to notice. The space between the shoulders and the hip bones, we may notice something different there. Even if it's not different from each other, each side now, maybe it's just something different than what we noticed a moment ago when we last scanned the body. We may notice a sense of heaviness in one side of the body, maybe a more sense of lightness on the other. We may feel more integration on one side than the other, just meaning that like the body feels like a whole versus a bunch of different limbs and pieces and parts. And it may even be something that, again, is hard to describe, but even just noticing something feels different, something shifted. I feel warmth, I feel tingling, I feel, whatever it is we might notice from these different places we just brought awareness to. Nothing right or wrong to notice, and it'll be different for everybody. And then as we just come back, sitting tall again, we'll move to the other side. So if we do have any new asymmetries, we can hopefully level them out. We'll bring the ear to the shoulder again, starting just with that C curve of the spine, noticing maybe the space that's available on this side in the first go around versus the third go around on the other side. I always notice a big difference there. Let's take the arm up and over again over the center line of the body. So as if we're aiming to go straight over the ear, but stopping whenever we get to the point where we would have to either bend the elbow or change that angle of the shoulder. So we're thinking really about this length through the side, not at all where we end up, really just what we feel, where we feel it. Curiosity about what's going on here. What are we noticing? What are we feeling? What are we sensing? What do we notice now that maybe we don't notice just walking around in a regular day? Bring that arm back down to center, and we'll come to neutral. Again, here, ear to shoulder. Let the body find its way into the C curve that feels just right. And then we'll take that arm up and over, lengthening towards the front of the face, almost like we're trying to go in front of the nose, noticing what's here. Easing that arm back down and pausing to rest, letting go of any effort. Once more on this side, ear to shoulder, coming into that side bend, letting our body find where it wants to be. Arm up and over as if we're trying to angle behind the head. And then letting the mind really notice all the sensation in the side body, both sides body, the lengthening side, but also noticing on the contracting side, anything that's going on here. Neck stays relaxed. Ease back to neutral here. And just pause and rest. Another opportunity for a body scan here. And we're just looking for anything that feels different than before. So maybe it's some of those asymmetries evening up. Maybe it's something else entirely. Maybe it's even just a sense that easy seated feels a little bit easier than it did before. Maybe it's just a little bit easier for the spine to stay elongated without as much effort. Whatever you notice here is just right. And then we're just going to go through a little torso rotation here, just integrating these new sensations into movement that we did before. So where our brain registered what it felt before, now it'll notice different things. So we give it at that opportunity through some movement. Can go the other way. And we'll come back to neutral here, just sitting tall. And now we're going to go into, so we've done our side bending, our lateral flexion of the spine. Now we're going to go into a little bit of rotation, and then we'll end with flexion and extension. We are going to be seated for the rest of our practice until final relaxation. So feel free to shake those legs out at any point if you'd like to. A chair is always a great option, elevating the hips, anything that just feels better for you here seated. And so let's go ahead and go into our rotation. So we'll start just by inhaling, arms overhead. Kind of lengthening the spine, sitting it nice and tall. And as we exhale, we'll come into rotation, bringing one arm towards the front, one towards the back, and just letting the fingertips just sort of rest down on the ground, just kind of marking where we are. We're not holding ourselves here. We're not pulling ourselves in any way. Thinking about lengthening the spine, so sitting it nice and tall, letting the head look over that back shoulder. And just for now, while we're here, rotate it as far as our body will currently go, noticing what you can see. What are your eyes resting on? If your eyes are looking as far over your back shoulder as you can, what can you see there? And then we're going to keep the body still, but we'll add an eye release. So let the eyes just gently drift towards the front of the body. So holding this spinal rotation, our nose is pointed over that back shoulder, but our eyes are looking towards the front of our body. And when they get to that point, when they're looking out of the corner of the eye, we can let them rest on something. So wherever they are, it doesn't have to be as far over as we can possibly look. We just are looking out of our peripheral vision, but then let the eyes rest on something. So they're not looking around, they're not taking in new information, they're just resting, signaling to our body that we're safe. We can let go. We don't have to worry here. We don't have to look around. And with each breath, maybe we notice our body easing a little bit more into that rotation, not forcing it, but as always, if that space is available, we can let our body move into it. And then relaxing the eyes, looking back over that back shoulder, and just noticing if our view has changed at all. Maybe we can rotate a little bit more without much more effort. Muscles have relaxed. Nervous system feels safe that we're not going to twist it any farther than it needs to go. And so we get different outcomes. Gently easing back to the center and just kind of relaxing here, checking in. Again, we can notice there's any asymmetries from one rotation being done and the other one not. Also may have noticed I did on that twist. With any of these practices, we could notice a little bit of a cramp, muscle cramp, like a Charlie horse kind of sensation. That's actually something that we call somatic motor amnesia. That is an indicator that that's an area that our brain has not really been communicating with those muscles very well. So when we ask it to do something, it kind of gets nervous and tenses up. And so not an unusual thing to happen with some of these somatic practices. And ideally, we'd have less of that as time goes on, as we rebuild these connections between the brain and the body. So let's go ahead and go the other direction in our twist. We'll take a deep breath in, reaching tall, and exhaling into that rotation. Long spine, looking over that back shoulder. Again, we're not forcing a twist, but we are just allowing the twist that's available in our body right now. Keeping the nose over that back shoulder, we can let our eyes drift forward and then resting on wherever they land. Breathing in, breathing out. We'll take one more deep breath here. Again, allowing any rotation that is available to us without forcing or trying too hard, just not resisting it. And then let the eyes drift back over that back shoulder and just notice if we have a little more space, a little more rotation. And sometimes we notice a lot, sometimes we don't. But noticing is the important part. Blinking the eyes will ease back to center. And again, just kind of this time, just move any way that feels good for you. Maybe some shoulder rolls, maybe some cats and cows, maybe it's some torso rotation, whatever feels good here. And then our last movement practice, the last postural awareness practice that we'll do is again for this protective forward posture or this open kind of hyper vigilant posture that we may have. And we may have both of them at different times, but either one creates a lot of tightness and tension in certain parts of the body. And what we want is to have just like a nice neutral posture so that our nervous system gets the message that everything's pretty neutral. We don't have to be hiding from anything. We also don't have to be hyper vigilant for anything. And so because many of us have both of these reflexive patterns at different times. We'll go into both of them. So we're going to start with forward flexion of the spine. So this is just going to be rounding the spine forward. Again, we want to go deep into that same direction, even if that's the postural pattern that we're trying to undo. We want to go deep into it so then the body can release back to neutral instead of trying to force the body out of that pattern that it's in with our might and our muscles. Instead, we go deep into it. That kind of resets it almost again, like resetting that seatbelt. Okay, so we're going to start just sitting up nice and tall. Option to bring the hands behind the head. If this is not comfortable for your shoulders in any way, hands can always just stay on the knees with the shoulders kind of back and down. But if it feels okay to have the hands behind the head, then that's a great option too. So thinking about the head really resting in those clasped hands. And so that's like just a little basket, a rest for our head so that our neck can stay really relaxed the whole time. So we're going to start with forward flexion, curling in. So tucking the chin to the chest. We're not pushing on our head at all. We're just kind of creating this little cradle for it to rest in. And thinking about the body curling in, almost like we're trying to touch our nose to our belly button. So if we think about the spine curling in, all the way up from the skull, the cervical spine, the thoracic spine, those elbows can kind of relax down. We're just letting gravity curl our spine into wherever it ends up.
And then just being really patient, letting it stop itself. We don't need to stop it. Breathing, neck's relaxed. And then very gently, we'll ease back up to our neutral. Feel free to relax those arms down in between if you'd like to. And then we're going to go into our open posture, our extension of the spine. So again, hands behind the head. This time we'll take the elbows, kind of press them back. So this is drawing our shoulder blades together. And at the same time, let the head rest back in those hands and come into a little bit of a back bend. And so notice what your legs want to do here. If having them farther out for leverage is helpful, that's totally fine. Having them crossed is fine if that feels good for you. We're doing a little bit of a back bend posture. So a little bit of a curve to the spine. Breathing in, breathing out, and relaxing back to neutral. And we can let those arms come down. And so again, now we're going to do that again, forward and back, but we're going to just add a little something to it so that we feel a little bit different sensation than we did just now. So again, we're giving our brain lots of different opportunities to experience new sensation. So let's take the hands behind the head again. We're going to curl it in, tucking the chin to the chest. So starting out just the same. Let the body really find that whole uh, flexion of the spine. So let the body stop itself. We don't need to stop it. Once it gets to where it's kind of not moving anymore, just taking the right elbow towards the left knee or foot, depending on how you're seated. But just a slight angle, staying in that forward flexion. Neck is really relaxed here, but it's almost like we're just kind of reaching slightly forward or slightly to the side in this forward flexion and noticing what you feel through the side body, through the back of the body. All about awareness of sensation here. What's going on? What do we feel? What do we notice? Easing back to that neutral, slowly coming up, and we can relax. Letting the brain take in those new sensory experiences, file them away for future reference. So now we're going to go into our extension, but we're also going to add a small rotation like that first. We'll start just by bringing the elbows back, drawing the shoulder blades together, creating that arc in the spine. Again, legs can come out for leverage if that feels better. Once we get into that full extension, the head resting back in the hands, neck's relaxed, we can just angle the body either direction. Just pick one. Just a slight rotation here as we're still in that back bend. It may not look like much, might feel like a lot. It does not have to be a big movement at all. But just noticing, what do we feel different here? What do we feel through the sides? What do we feel through the back? Neck stays really relaxed. Hopefully we don't feel anything through the neck. Easing back to center and back to neutral. Arms come down. Hmm. Mm. One more time through each. Again, adding some rotation in. We'll start by curling the chin to the chest, the nose to the belly button, letting the body rest and find where it goes. And it may be curling more than that first time. Let it if it will. And then again, angling just slightly the other direction, taking the opposite elbow towards the opposite knee. Noticing what's here, noticing what's different, releasing to neutral, and letting it all rest. And then one more time, hands behind the head, finding that back bend. Let the body find that full extension of the spine, and then just a slight rotation to the side. Breathing in, breathing out. Just noticing what the body's feeling here. No, no judgments or expectations, just awareness. Ease back to neutral. Let the arms rest down. And again, just some gentle integrative movement, however your body wants to move here. And now we're just going to sit up again. One last body scan here. Sitting tall, arms relaxed, shoulders relaxed down, lengthening through the crown of the head.
And just kind of noticing, is this upright posture a little less effortful than it was when we started? Has the body kind of found a little bit more neutral, side to side, front to back? Does the crown of the head feel like it's lifted up towards the sky a little bit more rather than going forward or back? Again, nothing right or wrong, just noticing if things have changed. Even if nothing feels that different, maybe we just notice a lot more awareness through the different areas and parts of the spine. And then we're going to go ahead once we've kind of finished with that body scan. We're going to take it down to the mat. We'll lie down, face up. And just coming into final relaxation posture here. So maybe that today is a constructive resting pose. Maybe our feet are wide on the mat and the knees are leaning in together. We now have all this, maybe this new space in the spine, this neutralness in the spine. And so maybe even extending the legs long and noticing how that feels. Maybe it feels different than usual. Maybe it feels the same. And feel free as we're coming into this too. We've been seated for a long time, maybe easy seated. Maybe the knees or hips want a little bit of windshield wipers for some movement through here. So just give your body what it needs before we settle in for stillness. Mhm. And then coming into just any posture that feels restful for you. As your body settles in, making any adjustments for comfort. You can notice all of the points of contact where our body is supported by the surface underneath it. And as we bring our awareness to those different places, noticing the weight of our body, the heaviness of our body, the density of our body, and noticing that density, that weight, as we would notice like the weight and strength of a boulder. This object is meant to be exactly where it is. It's not completely immovable. It doesn't need to be moved by anyone. Knowing that we can move it ourselves with very little effort, lots of ease, but it won't easily be shoved around and moved just for the sake of getting it out of the way. So feeling that rightness in being right where we are, physically, mentally, emotionally, knowing we're exactly where we're meant to be, on exactly the right path, steady and strong. And like that boulder, unflinching, not needing to protect ourselves with our posture or in any other way. And noticing how that feels in the body. Take 3 more deep breaths. When you're ready, gently start to move fingers and toes and bringing some intentional awareness back to the physical body. Move and stretch the body in any way that feels good for you. And then when you're ready, gently rolling onto the side. And as we go from that corpse pose, that posture of release and letting go, death to whatever we no longer need, and move into this posture of rebirth and possibility, openness to whatever lies ahead, leaving behind those old protective patterns and feeling safe and free and open to experience whatever comes our way, knowing that whatever it is meant for us and we can handle it. We're whole and creative and resourceful and open to the limitless possibilities ahead. Slowly and gently, we can press ourselves up to seated. And as we do, just kind of checking in with this body as it awakens back into daily life. Grateful for these bodies that we have and thankful for them exactly where they are today. Grateful we took the time to be here today to do something good for our bodies, something good for our minds, and something that's just for us. Once more, as we inhale, sweeping our hands overhead, bringing our palms together, and exhaling our hands to our hearts. The light in me sees and honors the light in you. Namaste.